All right, so that's the track that we'll be going into today. I was referencing Sebastian Sellares' Call to Arms. Crazy good track, so had to reference it and come up with something that was just inspired by it, and very happy with how it turned out. I was recording the entire process A to Z from scratch, so if you want to watch that, it'll be on Patreon. Also, the project file will be there probably eventually too, so yeah, just keep an eye on that if you want to kind of watch the whole process of making this and then maybe diving into the project file yourself. So without further ado, let's kind of dig into the low end first, the most important aspect of this type of music. Little kick, just a sample from my kick chamfer pick that I made a while ago. Shortened a bit because when you have a fairly active sustained bass going on throughout the entire track, it's good to have a shorter kick to kind of bounce with the bass more. If you have a long kick and a long bass, I should say, they're going to compete, and it's going to be hard to kind of balance them out so it's grooving together better. So sample here, compressed it, decent amount, and then EQ'd the kind of low mid area. Let's go without the processing. So compressor's going to add a bunch of gain and just smack you in the face. And then I think on its own, it sounds decent, but when you take out that low mids, it really helps clean up that low mid area that I would repeatedly struggle with. So I've lately been really scooping out a lot of this area and the bass, which we'll get to in a sec, but kicks too. It just depends on the sample. So try to keep your ears open for little too much low mid kind of That's a kick. And then we got the bass. The main kind of subby bass is a preset from PML, Production Music Live. One right here. Again, scooping out a bit of that low mid, bit of distortion, saturation, mixed a bit in R bass. Again, kind of low. So these two aren't doing a whole lot, but just a bit of thickness, which I wanted. And then we have the Reese bass. This is a preset from Splice. I forget what the FSS means, but easy to find. Taking out the low kind of subby area because that's being occupied by this guy already. A bit more distortion, saturation mixed in a bit. It has a good sub in there already, but sometimes I like layering it up. So there you go. And then the sidechain. We'll talk about the sidechain in a sec, but let's combine these two. So without the Reese bass, it loses a lot of that side information. The warmth, the full body stereo warmth that the Reese is just so good at providing. And then we're just compressing the two basses together, which something if you feel like you're struggling with your bass kind of having a good body, a good kind of front in your face feel, try to compress a bit more, or compress in general. That was something I kind of didn't do much. And it also depends on the preset you have, because some presets or patches, if you build your own, whatever, but sometimes they come, with compressors and stuff attached already, so you might not need to, but for me, I find adding a compressor really brings it forward in the mix. So let's listen. And then for the side chaining, in this style, you don't want it pumping too much, but you want it to duck out enough of the way for the kick, because the kick should be the dominant low end driving force in this style of music. So for me, I just kind of feel it out. Lately, I've actually been playing with this auto button. I used to not ever, I didn't even know this was a thing, but sometimes I find good results by using the auto release. So, you don't want it pumping like that. I mean, you can, but it's up to you. It's up to your ear, your taste. For my taste and the reference, we weren't doing that. So I can kind of solo the low end here. And so you're listening for the kick being the driving force. So you're listening for the kick being the main attention, the main, and then the bass kind of eases in and out. But they're kind of, and then you want to have like the volume fairly close to the kick, so they kind of play off each other. Because if the bass is too low, you lose that groove. You just kind of get the kick, which is fine. But I think you start dancing when you have a nice kick and bass relation. So yeah, a lot of it's just volume. So I think the compression helps in the bass area, because then when you compress the bass, it kind of flattens or levels the dynamics out a bit, which makes it easier to balance the levels, the gain. So that's the low end. Let's hear it in context with the track. And then there wasn't much, like usually some of the stuff that I make, there's a lot of automation and stuff, a lot of movements. For this vibe, the idea was to kind of keep the groove, just a nice groove. So not too much, nothing really, no movement really, besides automating the low end out for certain sections like the intro and the break to add contrast. So we'll touch on that in a sec, or we'll touch on that right now. So for contrast, when you drop into your bass drops, you want to have no bass essentially before the bass drop, because then how is it gonna impact you if you're already listening to bass going into bass. So for example, so we have it here, and then it's gonna come out. Automating it out. Kick's gone. Now it's mostly out. Missing. Here it comes. So keep that in mind whenever you're trying to create impact. Take the bass out, make sure it's filtered out or whatever before you bring it back in. And then yeah, just going back to the automation, the idea of this kind of vibe was to have not a whole lot of variation in the bass and low end, and even the drums is just a straight groove. And then everything that kind of keeps your interest is the melodic stuff, which we'll discuss in a sec. That's the low end. We'll touch the drum. Oh, sorry, sidechain. So I have a little sidechain layer here, because sometimes when you take the kick out, you don't want the pumping to stop. So it's nice to have a sidechain a separate sidechain layer that's not attached to your kick layer, because I find if you're doing a lot of pumping and you take the kick out, the volume is going to jump up a lot. So to prevent that, you can have another sidechain layer, and it'll keep ducking as the kick's gone, and kind of keep that the pumping going, which is often desirable. All right, that's the low end. Let's go on to the drums. Okay, so pretty simple drum setup here. Just a nice groove. It's got that organic kind of sound to it, more or less. For our clap group, we have this organic perk sample from Leviathan 2. Pretty old pack these days, I think. Black Octopus. And then this one from another organic sample from the same pack. And then combined, doing a bit of overdrive, a transient shaper, and then kind of making it more mono, less stereo. Here's how it sounds without. And then the transient shaper is just softening it and taking away a bunch of the sustain and bringing it down more close to the center. I find personally, and a lot of the music that I listen to within this genre, the clap will usually have like a sort of tone that is in key of the song. As you can kind of hear, there's like I'll try to find it. Like that. So keep that in mind when you're choosing your drum samples. Try to like find, like, did I pitch this? Yeah, this was pitched down 7 semitones. This is fine. So this sounded like that. So I pitch it down to kind of have that tone that'll go well with the rest of the track. So let's hear it without, in context. So that really adds up, those little moves in your drum kind of building. So try to think about that when you're building out some drums. In our hats, we got Cashmere Shaker, another shaker sample from PML. I think for this style of music as well, the sharpness of an actual hat sample is less desirable. The sound of a shaker using a shaker as a hat is kind of nice. It's like softer and just more pleasant and just smoother. So we got some overdrive. Pretty bright. We're making it more mono, less stereo, and then kind of darkening it, softening it with these plugins. I'll touch on kind of like MIDI placement, or just MIDI programming for drums. You want to look at velocity. You can use the velocity as a way to add groove. So if it's like these guys, 70, 71, 71, 69, 66, 72. You can use the velocity to add that kind of up and down groove to your drums. And then also the length of your MIDI as well can change. So you can do like, same length, and then like a short one here and there. Because if you have your sample on classic, it's going to only play as long as your MIDI note is. So that's most of the sample right there. But if you shorten it, it's going to cut short. So think about your MIDI notes and the length and the velocity when you're making your drum grooves. All right, and then we got a little hat texture layer here from one of my sample thingies. Just kind of took out this little section here and layered it with the hat. Without. Just adds that organic touch to it. And this guy, I was very happy to find this. This was kind of what tied the whole groove together, this Leviathan top loop. Adds a lot of air, so without it, you really lose a lot of that sizzle on top, the air. And then it has a really cool groove too that kind of ties everything together. And it has kind of an organic feel too. And finally, we have this shaker repitched. So originally it's an 80 BPM sample, which sounds kind of like this. I really enjoy repitching, using the repitch function, because it changes the tone of it. A big difference. So try repitching your samples a lot. Especially if there's a big jump in, like we're in 120 right now, so 80 to 120. The repitch sounded very pleasant for this drum groove, so that was nice. We're kind of warming or darkening it with this dirt plugin. And then a bit of panning with panning. Just add that movement. And for shakers, I like the idea of adding a bit of pump into it. So just a little bit of sidechain with a kick. Helps the shaker kind of bounce a bit more with a kick. All right, and nothing on the drum group. Usually I'll have like, compression and stuff, or, saturation, etc. But in this case, I found it didn't need it because a lot of the processing was kind of done individually for each main group. And then we have this drum reverb being sent through the group right here using the convolution reverb made for drums drum room. Taking out some of the lows and highs. Just so it's not so bright. So without the reverb, you can hear, especially in the clap group, just adds that air, that room, natural, real sound to it. Drums. Let's go over all the melodic elements that make up this track, starting with a sample I grabbed from Splice. I did that kind of beats mode thing, you know, when you change it to from transients to quarter notes or whatever, changing that to that, and then dragging down the envelope to give it a bit of movement. So originally it sounded like this. Just like a pad, some sort of atmosphere pad. So I wanted it to use it as a groove, so did that like I said, and then added an Echoboy for the delay. We're also using this send here, which it'll turn off for a sec. So pretty basic. Then you start kind of getting the groove going. Just a bit of compression. Sidechain, a lot of sidechain for the bounce. And then being sent to this guy, which I guess we'll just talk about right now. No, we're not going to talk about, well, yeah. No, you will wait. Okay. So back to this guy. That's kind of just being played out throughout the entire track as our little groove vibe. And then a nice kind of sustained single note playing throughout most of the track as well. Helps add tension when you use a note in the scale that kind of sounds good no matter what notes are being played. Usually either the root note, potentially. So I'm using Ethereal Earth, Angelic Whispers. And then you can... I was modulating or automating the cutoff here, which changes from the sound to down to kind of starts bringing in the voice. So automating in and out to give it that movement and variation. So just playing a C throughout the entire track, which probably was the root note. I'm not sure what key we're in, but it sounded good throughout the entire track. So keep that in mind as like another layer to add to your music. Adds tension. Nothing else really going on with processing. It's being sent to the Galaxy reverb, which I should have talked about earlier, but I just gonna blue ball you for now. And then sidechain compression. And then another layer here for the build up, just an octave up to add that extra tension before the final drop here. We'll get into arrangement, like all the automation stuff, I think after we go through these main elements. So won't touch on kind of the reasoning and idea behind certain automations. We'll get into that in just a minute. So we have this other layer from Omnisphere. This Purity of Orbit preset, just a crazy good organic sounding vibey thing, which I guess is a paintbrush potentially being rubbed against something. Reversed though? I don't know. Omnisphere has crazy stuff, which is perfect for this type of music. So if you're looking for like organic vibes, check out Omnisphere. Notes. As far as placement, it's kind of weaving in and out between each layer. I guess we're kind of getting to structure with that kind of talk, so we'll just move on. I'll talk about that in a sec. Another atmosphere layer. And this piano colors. buzz swell. Beautiful. Got some delay, and then this reverb, which is something I picked up from Sebastian Sellares. He did a breakdown of his Garden of Eden track on YouTube for Anjunadeep. And I totally stole the parameters, the settings he used for this replica, which is mainly a delay, but has a really good reverb characteristic to it as well. So either copy this or go check out his video, Garden of Eden breakdown, where he kind of goes through his melodic stuff on that track, which is insane. We got it in a effect rack here, so it's not fully consuming the initial sound of it, so that helps kind of mix it in nicer. EQ, taking out the lows, really good idea to take out a lot of your lows when you're doing reverbs, because that'll really muddy up your track really fast if you're leaving in lows in your reverbs. So this sound is great. Again, sidechaining. I sidechain pretty much every element individually, because I don't want some elements I want to kind of have less bouncy, and some elements I want more bouncy. So I think it's a good idea to sidechain individually based on your preference for each sound. And then we got this orchestral kind of groove. Using this library, Kontakt library, Sequis, Broken Clock. I might have changed one of these. I'm not sure. I forget, but or this could all be default. But yeah, you can change the samples. But I like the pattern that it was playing, and then I think it's velocity sensitive. So certain velocities bring out that. Like listen for right around this F3 up here. Once it reaches a threshold, like that. So I could be wrong. I don't know. There is some velocity stuff going on with that library, so it's great for randomness and movement. Just super easy. No real processing, just EQ. Ooh. Very boomy. Don't want that. Save the boom for the bass. And then we got the star attraction of the show, our diva lead. From this pack, it's called Fury. There you go, some oscillators. Not even soloing the right layer. We're distorting it pretty good, which helps it cut through the mix. Let's hear how it sounds without all this stuff. Make it smaller. So it sounds like this. And take out that. So like that's pretty boring, right? But then just a bit of, well, even it's just for this type of style, delay and reverb really just bring it home. So don't sleep on delay and reverb. Nobody does, but just what makes the vibe come alive. So distortion, compression. EQ in the lows. We got the delay, ping pong delay. We got the Echoboy Galaxy send. And then Sebastian's beautiful replica reverb. There's so much space. Love it. And then some compression, of course. Sidechain. As far as like notes and that kind of idea, what I did was, I don't really know music theory or how to play really anything, but I have a keyboard in front of me where I figured out what notes sounded good with the groove that we had. Like this groove was going. And then, you know, I figured out what keys kind of worked well with most of the progression, and I just kind of just played it in to how I felt, how I felt it should, and then using the reverb and delay to really carry through. That's why it's nice to have it's nice and spaced out, because you can have the delay and reverb taking a bit of the show. So without the delay and reverb, it's kind of boring, right? So. Very dry, no good. So yeah, just played it in, and then did a few takes, I think. Yeah, some takes, and then certain notes where you know I wanted something else, I couldn't figure out how to play it properly. Just move the notes around. And then also some presets are good in a way where they're velocity sensitive. So these guys are. So the velocity kind of affects the envelopes, could affect the cutoff, the attack, whatever. So that's another nice thing about playing in your notes, because you'll get your natural velocities, which add the humanized progression into your music. So instead of, if you're gonna draw in your notes, just be wary of your velocities, because every note's kind of different in weight, and then you can use velocities for adding tension, and like, you know, as you're progressing, you could slam your keys and make it more intense as we go on, which I think I did in some section here, like here. That's our main lead there. Drop 2, we have this beautiful and it teases here, which we'll get to in a sec. But so this guy was made with Monarch, a preset called Copter, and it didn't sound exactly like that. It sounded like this, which sounded cool, but it didn't sound. The rhythm wasn't that good, so I messed around with a lot of just the modulation and stuff to come out like this, which I like better. Again, using the reverb. Can you see it? Yeah. The nice Sebastian reverb and sidechain. Then I have like another layer for the reverb of it. Like another reverb swell to kind of support it. Sometimes it's a good idea to have a separate layer for reverb to really dial in, you know, how long you want it, when you want to come in, and stuff like that. And also you can use it for a little teaser, which was used here. I thought it was kind of cool to foreshadow what was to come later on here. This was made with Playbox, Kontakt library, crazy sampling library. Makes a lot of cool sounds. Just wanted it as an accent, like a call and response thing. Then yeah, nothing on the melodic group. This whole project was pretty simple, I found, which is always nice. All the processing was done within each element, and thankfully wasn't too hard to blend together. Let's talk about the effects real quick. Something just real quick. Got this little atmosphere layer, some waves that I sampled from Mystic Beach in on Vancouver Island. I always find it's nice adding a bit of your own life as a background, as a sound bed to your music. So yeah, go out there and record whatever sounds you experience and throw it as a sound bed or a background in your music. It adds a nice kind of real atmosphere to your music. Yeah, organic, man. Really organic. And then we have waves. I use like the waves as an impact for certain moments. Echo, shimmer, OTT, and then EQ to darken it. That's the original sample. Cool. A little mossy tree smack. Some primal tap and a little shimmer. And this little waves shimmer sample helps transition from certain moments. It's kind of like a noise sweep, but more, I'm going to say the word, organic. We got a wet plant punch sample. And then I just sampled this plant and then use it as like a swell or reverb in and out. Like that. And good old classic cymbals. Very subtle, like this type of just a bit of something, just to kind of signal that we're transitioning. And that is our effects. Let's talk about this Echoboy. Sorry for making you wait. It's nothing special, but it's just Echoboy's Galaxy preset. I know Resident loves this. He swears by this preset too. I think I heard him talk about it in one of his videos. He was going over some of his music, and he is incredible. So if he's using it, I would like to get a taste of that too. So nice thing to do for, I find, for like reverb sends and stuff like that. OTT really beefs it up, really just makes it crazy. So without OTT. obviously it's a lot of gain, but I think it just helps you manage the volumes way easier with OTT on it. Adds some lushness to it. Then we're EQing the highs and lows again because that's just too crazy. And it's good to sidechain if you have a long reverb going on, keep it kind of tucked away sometimes with some sidechain. And that covers the elements of making this track. Let's go over the mastering real quick. Let's do mastering, and then we'll go over arrangement and kind of final thoughts that you can take away. This shaper box was used in the break here, just as another way to add a bit of pumping in the break, but not super strong because the sidechain was too much. So we have this mixed in a bit. Just a bit of pump as we're fading into the buildup into the drop. Okay. So mastering started off with just cutting the low lows, high highs. Probably not doing a whole lot, but I see people do it sometimes and, could help. This guy is kind of gluing everything together with some nice saturation. Adds a bit of width, I find, too, maybe. Just like kind of... I guess because you're saturating the sides a bit, so it kind of does this, whatever this means, it does that. Making things mono below 106, mono maker. So I just kind of push these up, right? You push these guys up to add saturation for the side highs, side lows, mid highs. Tiny bit of glue mixed in there. See the needle's barely moving, but I always find the glue compressor makes like the really quiet parts just come up just a bit, just so you can bring the high and lows slowly closer together, which is beneficial in like cars and like other sound systems, I find. Mono. This multiband compression is also similar to glue, but for me, I find it really brings in the low end. Just a very small amount though. Like it fattens up the low end, I find. Not too much. Great. And then we're clipping it. Catching some peaks before we go into a maximizer. And then another limiter doing the final kind of push. I mean, we could bump it up, but for this song I didn't want to make it too crazy. Like that's loud enough. Without these, that was mastering. Sometimes I won't even do any of this. I'll just put a limiter on, but in this case, these actually were beneficial, I found. Sometimes I'll go through I'll go through this whole process of mastering and then realize it just sounds like shit. So I'll take everything off and just limit it, and I'm happy with it. So yeah, use your ears, find what sounds good to you, and go with it. Okay, let's just quickly go over kind of structure, arrangement, automation, stuff like that. So this one's a little bit different than I normally would talk about structure, because it was just like a vibe that you kind of played over top of and had melodic elements weaving in and out. But you want to look at your songs in like, I mean, do whatever you want, but the general format is kind of every 8 bars, 8 bars. There's something going on, something changing, something about to happen. So, and then like big moments like a drop or a chorus could be like 16 bars, 32 bars. In this case, it's 40. So, it varies, but just keep mind the 4 8-bar kind of chunks. So that's why I like segmenting my projects like this, having these markers or locators, just to give me a visual or a visual idea of kind of the journey of the song, the structure. So, and then, you want to think about energy, growing, displacement, tension building, and stuff like that. That comes with like contrast and like high frequencies, low frequencies. So in the intro, it's pretty stagnant. We're missing that sub though, and like a bit more groove. So it's kind of like there's some tension building right now. And then we have this melodic part kind of bringing the transition part. And it comes down. And then it's followed by, the bass drop. And then more high frequencies, adding more energy. A shaker to add more movement, more energy again. So now we're kind of in a nice energy moment. And then this comes in, which is like the highlight, the lead. And then all of these melodic elements are acting as the support and like call and response and kind of like this, kind of filling up the space. So you can weave things in and out with reverb and automation or volume automation. So this lead part, we're at a high point, but to transition, we're gonna go low to signal that like, oh, we're cooling down. This is a cool down area. Took away the sub, took away the bass. Kick's gone. Oh, I forgot to mention this guy is automated. Pitching down and up to add that kind of riser effect, which is adding tension. So right here, tension was being pushed by this automation or the gain automation. So this, remember how a sustained kind of high string, it's usually a high string, but you can use like any kind of sample you want or any kind of sound source. But the volume is going up to really push it in your face with this other octave. So these two combined, it sounds very like, oh, like something's going to happen. What's going to happen? And the volume is going up. And then we have this auto filter taking away all the lows, because we want to get rid of, not all the lows, but we want to get rid of a good chunk, usually around 200, 250 hertz. before we get into the sub kick drop, just to add that impact. Because if there's sub stuff going on before the drop, it's going to be less impactful. So keep that in mind. Kind of filtering out your low end, especially before you jump into the big bass drops. So yeah, that's kind of the general idea of just what I wanted to touch on structure-wise and arrangement, automating volumes and weaving things in and out, growing or decreasing energy, just being mindful of where you're going, where are you taking the listener, what do you want them to listen to? Cool. That'll probably do it. Like I said, you want to watch the whole A to Z process, uncut, raw, me making the song, maybe you'll learn something from it. Should be on Patreon. I'll probably put the project file up there too. And yeah, happy producing. Let me know what you thought in the comments, if this was helpful or not. And we will see you in the next video. Bye.